What's up, guys? This video is going to recap the shopping cart project. We're going to have a menu with items and prices. We're going to get choices from the user, and then we're going to present them with a receipt at the end, including a total. This is meant to practice dictionaries and lists, but it gives you a chance to add whatever you want to the menu and to add other features if you want to let them have an undo or abbreviated names or a tip at the end, things like that. So we're going to start with a menu, and this is a dictionary which uses curly brackets. I'm going to break it up into separate lines, but that doesn't affect the code, it's just visual. So I'm going to say, what if we do example coffee shop, coffee, tea, that kind of thing. You could do whatever you like, cars, shoes, potions in a video game, things like that. And let's just give them a number. The keys, the stuff on the left of the dictionary, is what you put in, and the values, the stuff on the right, is what comes out. I'm going to use strings and integers, no, floats, but anything can work. If you look up the rules on how to handle money in Python or any programming language, you might see warnings to avoid floats, because every once in a while you'll get like 0.0000004 wrong. We're going to ignore that for now, but keep it in mind. So let's say maybe we'll have like a bagel and some toppings for the bagel. Sometimes people ask how many, and I say 5, but that's just a made-up number. You can do whatever you like. One thing I will say, put a comma on the last one, because then when you come back later and you say, I'm going to add another, all you have to do is hit enter. So let's test out our menu. And we'll say we get the price of this thing. The way you generally look things up in a dictionary is with brackets, kind of like how we look up things in a list, but you're giving a key instead of an index. So let's give that a try. If I say tea, it should say $2.99 because that was the corresponding price. The problem is it will blow up if I make a typo. If I enter a nothing, that's no good, right? So let's say, okay, by the way, you can use the .get method and say, oh, get this price, and if it wasn't right, then we have a default, and maybe we ask again. But I'm going to ask again before we get there. I'm going to say, well, choice not in menu. We'll just ask again. We'll say, actually, let's use our F strings. I've been talking about F strings recently, so we can say whatever you typed, not found. So if you say, it says, hey, that's not found, and then you go back to something, good. In the real program, we'll get several things. You might say, oh, I'll have a bagel and cream cheese and coffee, so let's put this in a loop. And now, we're good until we try to exit the loop. There's no way to get out, so we need to say maybe a keyword like you enter quit, or what if you just enter nothing? What if you just give them a blank? So how can we check for that? Should we say like if not choice break, and then you're like, oh no, I'm stuck because I'm entering it in this one and not this one, so do we copy that? I hope not. This would be terrible, right? What we need to do is to have this completely separate and figure out a way to get there. So what can we do here? This could be a function. We call a function that like tells us whether or not it's valid, and that function knows that we want menu items or blanks or redo, undo, other things that we look for later. Honestly, I've done that a few times in some examples recently, so I feel like trying something different. What if instead of the bad stuff first, like we're ruling out the invalid. What if we look for the good stuff, and then invalid is just like whatever's left over at the end? So what I mean is, I'm going to change this to if it is in the menu, we'll look it up, and if it's not, that'll be the thing at the end. I'm going to get to remove this repetition, by the way, which is always nice. So here's what I mean. If it's in there, we do something. If it's blank, we're done. If it was something else, we tell them, hey, I don't know what you mean. So what do? We do this. And that was quite a bit, but it was mostly rearranging what we had. Let's try that. Let's say, yeah, let's do a wrong one. See if we can get back on track. Okay, great. We don't know if we've been correctly doing this stuff all along until we build up a list and then we print that list at the end. So let's say we'll make a thing called cart. This will be our shopping cart. And in this path, we'll add something to the cart. In these, we won't, okay? So what are we gonna do? Cart.append. Well, do I want the item? Do I want the price? I think I want both. So I want choice price. Well, you can't do that. If you try to append, it's gonna say, oh, we want one thing. Append is for one thing. So I'm gonna put it in parentheses and append a tuple. So this is a pair, kind of like an XY pair of coordinates or something like that. This is the bundle of choice and price together. How do we know? We don't until we test it. So let's give that a try. I'm doing T a lot because it's just the easiest to type, especially with one hand. But let's do, coffee is also a left-hand word. Let's do a bad one. Hummus, and that's weird unless you have a bagel to put it on. Okay, great. And now at the end, we get the list of tuples, item, price, all the way down in order. Beautiful. Let's put this in a main function because we're about to have other functions. And so at the end, we'll say main, and I'll run it once just to make sure I didn't mess it up. Beautiful. Now, I really feel like adding more. Like, hey, maybe you can type menu to see the menu. Maybe you could type undo to undo the one you've done. Not quite ready for that yet. I'm going to come back at the end and show an example. What I do need, for sure, is the receipt. Because when we show this list, first of all, it looks bad. It's got bracket, parentheses, quote before you even see anything. And second of all, it's missing the most important thing, which is the total. Because if you go buy items at a store or on an online shopping cart, you need to know the total. So let's make that. I'm going to make a function called receipt, and it takes a cart, and it handles that stuff. Okay, so I'm going to go for product price. I was going to call it item, but I'm thinking we might use dictionary.items. That's a method that we use a lot, and I don't want to be confused with that. So this is a list of tuples, so we're going to get two things. For each thing in the cart, we have a name and a price. So what do? Well, we're going to make visual output, lines of a string or whatever, but we're also going to use the price for totaling. So let's say, okay, total is 0, total plus equal price. That's going to happen, but also, what are we going to do with this output? I like to print in the main function and not anywhere else, so that if something's on the screen, I know that it came from the main, and I don't have to look through 10 other functions to see where are all these prints. So I'm going to make this just return a string and not actually print anything. So I'm going to make a list, and then we'll add some lines, and then we'll join them at the end. We'll call it lines, you know? It'll start empty, and then we'll go lines dot append. Here's where we're gonna make like the name, colon, space, $, price, that kind of thing, you know? So this is where we're gonna use our F string. It's gonna be really nice so that you don't have to str plus quote, etc. Try that. And then at the end, we will return this guy is a new line character, or I think technically it's called a line feed. It's like in the old days with the typewriter, you would crank the thing to move the paper, and it goes to the next line. And when we join it with these guys, it's going to make them separate lines. Hey, wait a minute, we're missing the total. Well, let's test it with this, and then we'll go back and throw that in. So instead of printing the cart, we print the receipt of the cart. And so let's see how we're doing here. Beautiful. It says the thing with the line and the $. Great. So we got to add this. We could do a dot append with the total, or you could just do it in here. You could say like lines plus whatever. I'll do it right here. So we're going to have another one, which is total $, total. How about that? Oh my gosh, what did I do? Oh, I said result. Because usually when I'm building up something to return at the end of a function, I call it result, so I guess that was in my mind. But this time I called it lines. And that's an interesting question about naming. Is it more about the content, which lines is the content, or is it more about the role that it plays? Like result is the thing that we're going to return at the end. Either strategy is very reasonable, and if I saw either one, I would go, yeah, this person knows what they're doing. So just got to pick one. So let's say amazing. That's what I wanted, right? What is this thing? 30-ish lines, pretty good. Let's say we'll add another feature or two just to show how you might do it. First of all, I want the receipt to look a little bit better. I'm going to say like, let's do like a dotted line at the top, and then receipt. And all I have to do to make lines is to put items in my list, because they're going to be joined at the end. So now you can see that it's like dotted line, receipt. Beautiful. And the setup makes your next thing easier. Like I already have these lines, they're already being joined up, it's already nice. So it's easy to throw on one or two more. What about this down here? You should probably be able to say menu to see the menu, or something else. So let's say if choice is menu. No, that should be elif, because these are all dependent on each other. Then we'll go print menu. And then you can say, okay, I can still do the same, but if I want to see the menu, that looks horrible. Should we do the same thing we did in the receipt? Should we make one function that prints a dictionary in a pretty way and then use that for both? But the cart isn't a dictionary, so we could adjust. This is where it gets fun, and if you wanted to add that, you should definitely give it a look. I would say that if you call the dictionary .items method, it gives you tuples, just like the receipt starts with. So that could be one step toward printing it in a pretty way. But right now I'm just going to do a little quick thing, not making a function. I'm just going to say for product price in menu.items print so you can see it's almost the same as what we did above. So it feels like it could be combined for sure. Or should we just print the menu once at the top and not let them ask again? It looks fine to me. Okay. So let's do one more, just for fun. I wanted to show an undo, because this is always my suggestion if somebody says, what could I add to make this project more interesting? I always say add an undo in pretty much any project. It's kind of fun. So let's say, okay, elif choice equals undo. Now it looks weird because I spaced that one, not the other one. Let's say I want to use the pop method. I'm going to go cart.pop. And then you could say, okay, I'll add a t, and then I'll undo, and then I'm done. And it's nothing because I undid it. But the problem is, if you say undo at the beginning, you try to remove from an empty list, you can't do it. Plus, it's a little weird that it just doesn't say anything. When I say t, it should confirm we added it, and when I say undo, it should confirm we've removed it, right? So let's add a tiny bit of message there, okay? So you could say like, okay, you know, removed equals card.pop, and then we print blah, blah, blah. But we would miss the what if it's empty thing. And to me, this feels like it should be a separate function. So I'm just gonna, yeah. Okay, so I'll say if not cart, we're gonna return something that's like, hey, we couldn't do it, right? Else, we're gonna say, I feel like pop is a little wrong, because when you send it to a function and the function changes it, it's always weird. It's like, what are you doing? Make a new separate thing. So I'm gonna go, the rest and the last is the cart, and then the rest is what we treat as the new cart. So I'm gonna say like, actually the last thing can be broken up as well to say, I don't really care about the price, but the product name, what are we gonna return? Well, we wanna return the new cart and a message, so it's gonna be a tuple. So I'm gonna say returns tuple of new cart message, and then the main function can just say, okay, got it, thanks. Use the new cart, print the message. Whether it was an error or a no change, change, error, good, we're fine. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna go empty, and cart is cart already empty. And maybe if there's exactly one, we tell them, hey, it's empty now, but we'll leave that off. We'll return the rest and use our f strings even more. Product remove from cart. And then we'll say cart message equals undo cart print message. This is what I feel like we should do up here as well, because it's going to be like, we're going to add the message thing of printing the confirmation, and it's going to be a little longer. We can put it in its own function. I don't know. Let's say run this little guy. But I never closed my quotes. Fantastic. Let's add this, but like I said, it really feels like we should peel that off into its own thing, handle any details that come up, and then in the main we just say, yep, take it, print it, done. But for now, it's okay. These kind of programs always seem fine, and then one part grows, maybe you move it off into its own thing, then another part grows, and you go from there. If the main function is focused on details, I usually want to move them out. If it's focused on like the overall table of contents style summary, I usually like that. So let's see how this works. Let's go tea, coffee, undo again, done. So we've got 2 T's, even though we ordered 3 because we removed the coffee and the one behind it. If you imagine a stack, we're taking them off the stack. So you can undo farther down the line. What if we try to undo when it's not safe? That's okay. we're fine. Great. I love that. I'm going to end it there, but just know that you could add other options, make the menu prettier, make the output, ask for tip, shipping, put the tax on there. Maybe some items are tax exempt, like when you go to the grocery. Maybe some items get a discount when they're part of a combo, like bagel and cream cheese are 10% off if you get them together. All kinds of things could be there. Buy one, get one free, whatever. Have fun, give it a shot.